I just want to say a few words at the moment about why now. It's 2021. We're heading into the primaries of Virginia. Virginia has elections in November 2021. So why the heck did we ask you to come here tonight in the spring of 2021 to talk about Pennsylvania? Why get going now? Why is it so important? You're going to hear a lot tonight about why specifically Pennsylvania is so important. I'm sure most of you know that already, but you'll hear more detail. And you'll hear about what it is we are funding and why we're funding it.
So just to get into some of the specifics, again, many of you know this, but just to run through it, I think it's in my view, Pennsylvania is the most important state for 2020, a open US Senate seat. We're 50-50 now, as you know, everything teeters on the edge. We have a governor's race. The governor is Democratic, but he keeps the Republican legislature in check. If we lose that, we're in big trouble in Pennsylvania, a hugely important state. We have some important House races I'm going to just talk about very briefly. Half the state Senate, all the state House, one Supreme Court seat, other races too that I'm not even going to go into. And we need to prepare for 2024. Again, this is the long-term process. But in the more short term is the point that actually Pennsylvania has many key local races in 2021. Now, those races are important in and of themselves, but they are also going to give us the opportunity to get this organizing model running so it's able to be tested out and tried out and so forth, and hopefully prove that it's going to be working, and that will give us momentum into 2022. So now let's talk about this famous Wisconsin neighborhood organizing model that Martha Lanning, who we're going to hear from, was a sort of prime mover of. And basically the model is there's an organizing director for the state, and there's a bunch of what are called regional organizing directors. In our case, we're trying to get 12. And no, this is very different from the model that you get with regular campaigns where they might just hire 100 organizers. We're just want to hire these organizing directors, and then their approach is to find the people, the local volunteer leaders and contacts. Those people are out there, whether they're in indivisible groups or precinct groups or whatever, they are out there. And there's a way to organize them so that they then are the leaders and they reach out to their contacts. So there's actually three major advantages to this. One is it's cheaper because you're not paying these volunteers. They're like us, you know, they really want to do things, and they don't need money. They need other kinds of rewards, recognition and incentives and so forth like that. Another major benefit, though, is that it's constant. They're not going anywhere. I mean, sure, some will come and go, but basically you're getting a continuous set of people that are working on it in a long-term basis. And then the last thing is that they live there. So they're not people that have been brought in who then have to establish relationships in their communities. They live there. And so it's a form of what's called relational organizing. And, you know, it's year round and it works.
Is I traveled around the state of Wisconsin after my run and was talking to a lot of people about what is going on in our state. We were going to hire or elect a new state chair. And what do we need the state party to do? And in the process of doing that, I was asked to run for chair. I did. And I'm really consolidating a lot of work into a short little presentation here. But what we learned was that we Democrats needed to learn how to do a lot more work for a lot less money. And I was looking at President Obama's model in Wisconsin and saying, how did he turn out? If I went back here, how did he get so many more voters to turn out? What was his race? Why was it different from Kerry and Gore, who had won by 5 and 11,000 votes, while he won by 400,000 and 200,000 votes? And later, Hillary Clinton lost by 20-some thousand votes. So the big difference was the field program. And so we knew that we needed to activate our volunteers, the greatest resource we had. We also identified that we wanted to be a resource for candidates, so the candidates weren't hiring consultants, often from out of state, that really don't know our state and making bad decisions for them. And finally, a lot what James just talked about is, why do we just shut everything down and recreate the wheel every cycle? We needed to change how the Democratic Party worked. So I will tell you that there was some resistance, and James had referred to this. I had raised a lot of money to run for state senate. I didn't have troubles raising money. I went to some of those same people to ask them to help me build a stronger state party. And a lot of them looked at me and said, well, Martha, why doesn't the state party already do this? Like, this is crazy. And a big part of it was a lack of resources. When I came in, we only had 6 staff members for the entire state and 1 comms person, an executive director, 1 political person. Here we are supposed to do all of this work. We had nobody, not a single person that worked with activists or organizing, because there weren't resources. The DNC gives you, right now, they give $150,000 a year guaranteed to a state party, but anything beyond that, you have to raise. I also heard from investors, though, that the party's like a big black hole. Like, I give you money and I never find out what happens. And that's something we as state parties needed to change. And I did. I ended up having a briefing that occurred regularly with our donors, so that donors would hear how we were doing and they were part of our team. And then finally, I heard it's not the top of the tickets job was an issue. People were telling me that's the top of the tickets job, the presidential or the gubernatorial, the UNS Senate candidate. We simply can't sit around and wait for the candidate to be identified and then wait for them to build this program. It wasn't working in Wisconsin. So what we did is, we did a lot of things, but this is the most important one is, we went back and launched Obama's neighbor to neighbor program. So we wanted to build teams all over the state of Wisconsin that were trained to independently organize about whatever issue you wanted. We had some that were organizing picketing Paul Ryan's office. We had some that were organizing about water quality or sand fracking or building a new school. Whatever they wanted to organize, we took our staff, our organizing team. We had hired 5 regionals. We had a constituency outreach and a youth director, and then a state organizing director that supervised all of them. We worked with them to just build teams and to have the staff teach people how to target, how to organize, how you're going to do follow-up calls to be sure people show up for your activities. It was a huge success. We built 99 teams. The first graph on the left is 99 teams in 2017, but by the election in 2018, we had over 200 active teams around the state. And you can see they're all over the state, which was really encouraging to us, because a lot of times people don't spend any time in those rural areas. The results were phenomenal. With half of the money that we spent in 2016 on Hillary Clinton's field program, we did 80% more doors than we had done in 16. So it was a huge hit. But it isn't just important that you do doors, because if people don't turn out to vote, what difference did it make? We went in and looked at our universe of 752,000 voters, and we found that 75% of them had voted. And that's 2.5% higher than our statewide average for voting. And considering that we were targeting voters that were less likely to show up, that were infrequent voters in midterms, it was a huge win for us.
Lisa, Jim, Martha, everybody on this call, thank you for even considering this project. It will pay dividends. I believe in field. I came up through field, and I think that if we can do this and do this right, we can grow this and improve that. If you invest in field and you invest in people, that ultimately can trump anything else that our opponents can throw at us.